Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Yeah, Vidya Mati, whenever you're ready, you can start, Mati.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Taturjaya Muriraye Nasta Pareshya Bhareshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naisteki. Today we are reading from Canto 1, Chapter 18, Maharaj Parikshit, cursed by a Brahmana boy, text 34 through 50. Text 34. The descendants of the kingly orders are definitely designated as watchdogs, and they must keep themselves at the door. On what grounds can dogs enter the house and claim to dine with the master on the same plate? 35. After the departure of Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead and supreme ruler of everyone, these upstarts have flourished, our protector being gone. Therefore, I myself shall take up this matter and punish them. Just witness my power. 36. The son of the Rishi, his eyes red hot with anger, touched the water of the river Kausika while speaking to his playmates and discharged the following thunderbolt of words. 37. The Brahmana's son cursed the king thus: on the seventh day from today, a snake bird will bite the most wretched one of that dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette by insulting my father. 38. Thereafter, when the boy returned to the hermitage, he saw a snake on his father's shoulder, and out of his grief he cried very loudly. 39. O Brahmanas, the rishi who was born in the family of the Angira Muni, hearing his son crying, gradually opened his eyes and saw the dead snake around his neck. 40. He threw the dead snake aside and asked his son why he was crying, whether anyone had done him harm. On hearing this, the son explained to him what had happened. 41. The father heard from his son that the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best amongst all human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but, on the contrary, began to repent, saying, Alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment by an insignificant offense. 42. Oh, my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with common men. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by his unsurpassable prowess. 43. My dear boy, the Lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime. And when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanish the unprotected subjects like scattered lambs. 44. Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social disruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. And for all these sins, we shall be responsible. 45. At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of a progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the caste and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, They will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. 46. The Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is a saint amongst royalty, and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. Text 47. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy, who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. 48. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. 49. The sage thus regretted the sin committed by his own son. He did not take the insult paid by the king very seriously. 50. Generally, the transcendentalists, even though engaged by others in the dualities of the material world, are not distressed, nor do they take pleasure in worldly things, for they are transcendentally engaged. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of Canto 1, Chapter 18, Maharaj Parikshit, cursed by a Brahmana boy. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vidyamati. We'll offer brief prayer and continue. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishubhadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirushesha Shunyavadi Paschat Desatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktamunda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, it's a super wonderful section. It was, I loved reading this section. Hopefully, you like some other insights from Srimad Bhagavatam, this section, and purports from Sri Prabhupada himself. So, as you know, the context was that, and this is the cusp of Dwapar Yuga and Kali Yuga in the transition time. These incidents are happening. Before that, how did this come about is in the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto. We're in first canto, fourth chapter. There are three series of questions were asked. One series of questions were about how did Srimad Bhagavatam come about? What inspired Vasudeva to write, compile this like that? That was explained in the beginning chapters. And then another question was asked about Parishit Maharaj's birth and activities. And specifically, why did he renounce the kingdom? That is what is that portion about why did he renounce kingdom is being described now in this chapter and the coming chapter like that. And then also another question they asked was about how did Sukadeva Goswami arrive and how was he taken by people of Hastinapura? How did he meet Parishit Maharaj? Please describe about that like that. That will also come up in the next chapter. So basically, in that context, we're seeing how Parishit Maharaj's situation came about before he renounced the kingdom. That is where is the context. So in this chapter, we already heard, in this chapter, in the previous chapter, briefly, we heard the circumstances where Parishit Maharaj was going out in the kingdom to find to check the influence of Kali. We heard in the previous chapter. In this chapter, we are hearing the specific incident that happened, wherein Parishit Maharaj came over with hunger and thirst suddenly, and then he was fatigued also, and he came to the ashram of the Samik Rishi. And then we heard in the last session, I think Naval Kishore Mati was describing how when he came, he was not well received, like a guest is supposed to be received. What to speak of king and emperor of that particular place. because Samik Rishi was in a trance at that time. So that time, somehow the king Parishit overcame with anger, like Mataji described. The primary thing to take in this pastime was everything was ordained by the will of the Lord. Everything was arranged by the will of the Lord, so that many things can happen for the benefit of all of us to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is the thing we were discussing in the last session. And then King Parishit, having overcome with anger due to the influence of Lord uh, and his internal energy, he put a dead snake on the top, on the shoulders of Samik Rishi. So then this incident was heard by Samik Rishi's son, who was a child. But even though he was a child, he was a Brahmana. He was a powerful Brahmana. So uh, what did he do is the section we are in now. Let me see, we're in 34 verse, right? Yeah. So after, at that time, what was described in the previous verses is that Samakrishi's son was playing. His name was Shringi. He was just playing with children. And that time he heard about the incident. Oh, one king came and then he put a dead snake around your father's neck. Like that, he heard that incident. Then that Shringi became angry. He started to chastise king. How did he? The last verse, I'll go back to last verse, one verse. He says how, just look at the sins of the rulers who are like crows and watchdogs at the door. They are perpetrating sins against their masters, contrary to the principles governing servants. Like that, he started. Basically, Sringi was a immature boy that comes out in the next verses. He did not consider that even though in one sense Kshatriya is the lower order compared to Brahmana's caste, but still he is not considering that every caste and every order has its position in the overall society and in the overall plan to uplift consciousness of people to go back to Krishna. That he did not have the maturity to consider how everything is everything is in place. So as devotees, also practicing devotees, we also need to learn to see the proper position of everything in our life, everything in the creation in relation to Krishna. Then we don't make any mistakes with anything. Otherwise, we'll consider this is useless, this is bad, this is like that. Of course, it's important to see what is the higher position as a devotee, but we don't need to condemn lower position, which is designed for elevation of consciousness of people. Now, going to the today's verses from 34th onwards. 34th verse, this is still that child, small boy, a child of Samik Rishi, Sringi is speaking these verses. He's saying, these descendants of kingly order are designated as watchdogs. So he's calling king as a watchdog. And then he says, they must keep themselves at the door. Like a dog, when he's watching, it's supposed to be outside the door and not come inside and take food from the master, like the master's plate, like that. Like that he's calling. So, so two things here. Of course, Vedic culture is that animals were not kept inside the home, like now is happening, number one. Number two, in one sense, it's correct that Kshatriyas are meant to be like watchdogs protecting the borders of the kingdom. So that way, enemies attack, they'll protect the citizens from enemies attack like that. That in that sense, that is correct. And also they protect against thieves like that. But then calling somebody like you are like a watchdog, you're just supposed to take care of me, like that is very demeaning. So that's what Prabhupada explains here. And Prabhupada explains in this set of verses, this shows the inexperience of the Brahmana boy in this situation. And then not only that, Prabhupada explains that this Ringi did not consider, oh, king, great emperor came to our home personally, but then we didn't offer him a seat, we didn't offer him some water, especially when he's hungry and thirst. He did not think like that. He not seeing what is wrong that we did. Did we not do something well yet? But he's just considering other position, other side. King did wrong, king did wrong, king did wrong, like that. Of course, a king putting the dead snake around Rishi is definitely wrong for sure. But then he is only considering the other people's wrong, not my wrong from their side. So we should also learn whenever we are faced with different circumstances in life, we should consider how did I contribute to this situation, if any. That is important to consider, not just blaming other people. How did they do that? That's why they did this happen. That's why this happened like that. So that's one thing we can learn. And the second thing Prabhupada highlights in the purport is the false prestige that Brahmana boy Sringi was carrying. That is why it caused the downfall of the whole perfect social order. Like Brahmanas became degraded because of Brahmanas becoming degraded. Brahmanas are the head of the society. Rest of the caste also got degraded. Like that, Prabhupada explains in the next set of purports. This is important for those of you who attended the session Sunday feast class yesterday from by Nilamada Prabhuji. You might have heard the Nirmana Dosha. That verse he was reading from 15th chapter of Bhagavata, 6th verse. So basically that also describes how to go back to spiritual world. We need to be free from false prestige, that is pride, like that. So that is highlighted in this particular purport also. That false prestige is what is causing the downfall of this Brahmana. Of course, the elevated consciousness will help us to go back to Godhead, right? So we should be watchful of our false prestige also. So we should not carry any false prestige. How to do that, we'll come to know in the coming verses also. Now going to 35th verse, this Sringi, this child, he thinks, oh, Krishna disappeared. Now there's nobody protecting the religion. Let me take care of it. Let me become the protector of religion, like that. That's how he took the position. So this again, Prabhupada indicates is a puffed up position. That means he's proud that let me take the position of Krishna, like that. That means he thinks that he can do what Krishna can do. So in one sense, as a representative of Krishna in humble mood, doing a service is different. But then thinking that I will take care of everybody nicely, like that, even though he's not in a position to do that service, like that. So that's what is described by Prabhupada in the purport, saying that because of this false prestige of this Brahmana boy king Sringi, and also because of his puffed up attitude, pride, Kali took a chance to enter and influence him, like that. Of course, in the broad scheme of things, like Naval Kishore Mataji described in Friday session, in the broad scheme of things, it's all arranged by the will of the Supreme Lord. So Parikshit Maharaj can go back to Krishna soon, and so that we all get to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the broad scheme. But still within the broad scheme, we can understand the lessons from the circumstantial aspects that can be seen with the external manifestations that we can see ourselves also. So that's why we're discussing not only the broader will of the Lord, and also discussing what happened, particular circumstances also in this scenario. So he describes the Kali influenced the Brahmana boy. Then, yeah, the personality of Kali got the opportunity to influence Sringi. That is how the essence of this verse basically. Then the text 36. So this he says, now the Brahmana boy became angry with red hot eyes, and then he touched the water of the river. You know how sages, when they need to curse, they need to touch water. Then only they can do that. Then he started speaking to playmates and begin to curse. Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Sringi was showing his impudence among his playmates who were innocent. So basically, Prabhupada makes 2 points. One is that if this Brahmana boy, Sringi, would have done among devotees, for example, the same act, he was about to curse before devotees. Devotees are nice people. They want to make sure that everybody is, we're kind to others, and then everybody's welfare is taken care. So they would have stopped the king, this boy, Sringi, from cursing. But because he did among the children, there's nobody to stop. That is one point Prabhupada makes. And second point Prabhupada makes is that by using the word impudence, he's saying that he did not show the due respect that king is to be given in this circumstance. That's why it's called as impudence. He's showing impudence among his playmates, like that. Now going to the 37th verse. Now he utters the curse, Shringi, the Brahmana boy. He says, on the 7th day from now, this king will be killed by a snake bird, bitten by a snake bird. So that way he will die like that. And he says, because of his having broken the laws of etiquette for insulting my father. So it's correct. He broke the laws of etiquette. That, but still, for a small mistake, it was a not a appropriate punishment at the same level. It was a inappropriate punishment. Mistake was so small and the punishment was so big like that. That this boy could not understand that. So now, mm, yeah, Prabhupada writes, the Brahmana Bhai considered Maharaj Parikshit as the wretched of the dynasty. Actually, in actuality, based on the actions that Sringi performed, he's acting like that, wretched of his dynasty, Brahmana culture itself, Brahmana caste also. So, another point Prabhupada makes in the purport is, now, through this, the caste system got degraded. Now, instead of reviving the caste system in a proper way, based on the guna and karma, based on the qualities and occupation, people are saying castes are good, not good, and they're abolishing caste system like that. So, Prabhupada is emphasizing the principle that we should always look for the root cause of why something did not go well, instead of just discarding it, the system altogether like that. For example, if if some king doesn't do properly things, so instead of discarding the monarchy system, we need to consider how to get a properly qualified and trained king established. So that way things can continue. Similarly, if one particular saintly personality cheated somebody, then we don't discard the whole saintly system, whole guru system. We still find a qualified guru and take shelter of him, because that is part of the system Krishna arranged for our elevation. So that's the principle Prabhupada writes. I just give examples, but Prabhupada writes the principle here. Now going to text 38. Then the Brahmana boy went back to the hermitage, it seems, where his father was there. And he saw the dead snake in his shoulder. So far, remember, he did not see. He only heard from his friends. Now he saw the dead snake around his shoulder, father's shoulder. So then he becomes, he starts to grieve and he starts to cry very loudly. Normally, we will think he's crying by seeing the dead snake around his father. But Prabhupada elaborates in the purport that he actually realized that he committed a great mistake by cursing Maharaj Parishit. That's why he wanted to relieve off the burden by crying loudly, it seems. That's how Prabhupada explains in the purport. Now going to text 39. Yeah. Then when suddenly, slowly, gradually, the Samik Rishi who was in the trance came out of the trance, it seems, by hearing the crying of his son, it is described. And then he saw the dead snake around their neck. So see the reaction of how this sage responds to the dead snake around the neck. He simply takes it out and throws it away. He doesn't take any offense or anything like that, even after his son telling the story. And he started asking son, what happened? Somebody caused any harm to you? Please tell me, like that. So then the Sringi started to explain what happened, how the king came here with hunger and thirst, and but he insulted him by putting a dead snake, all that he described. Then he also told how he also cursed the king, that he will die in 7 days, like that. The moment Samikrishi heard that, he did not feel happy. Oh, I'm so proud of my son. See, my son is so attached to me because somebody did some harm to me. He cursed the king. He did not think like that, because he's not on the bodily attachment platform. He's not on the material platform. He's on a transcendental platform. That's described by Prabhupada in a later verse also, coming up, later purport also. That's why he did not consider in terms of situation, in terms of attachment. He considers situation in terms of a holistic in relation to Krishna, how we are all playing a part in the system of the society, like that. So neither he did not congratulate his son, and he began to repent for his mistake. He started to think, what a great sinful act my son has performed, like that. He started to think. And then he started to think, my son has given a heavy punishment for such an insignificant offense. Like that, he started to consider Swami Rishi. So purport of couple of beautiful points. One point is that in the verse itself, translation, it says, king should never have been condemned, like that. So Prabhupada is explaining why that is so, why king should not be condemned. First thing is, a properly trained king and qualified king is acting as a representative of the Supreme Lord with a good qualities that he develops. Okay. So that means even if he does something wrong, he's not to be condemned. Like for example, a doctor, sometimes while doing surgery, a patient dies in his care. But that doesn't mean that we go to the doctor and say, you are a killer of my son, like that. So like that, king also should never be condemned. Especially Rajarsis like Maharaj Parishit, who manage the kingdom so nicely so the citizens can elevate their consciousness and practice Krishna consciousness. So that's the main point Prabhupada writes in the purport. Another point Prabhupada writes in the purport is uh, the offense of the king was most insignificant. Then this, because he gave us such heavy punishment, it is like a sin on the part of Sringi. That's why Samik Rishi was regretting the whole incident. Now going to next verse 42, Samik Rishi started to speak to Sringi. He says, your intelligence is immature. You have no knowledge that king is as good as personality of Godhead. What have we heard in the previous purport? This verse is confirming that king is representative of Supreme Lord, like that. He's never to be treated like an ordinary man, because only because of the king's protection, citizens live in prosperity, like that he is describing. And then he starts to say in 43 verse that uh, actually, because king or monarchical regime is representing Krishna, our Supreme Lord, and when that monarchical regime is taken out, that means king is not there anymore, then the world becomes filled with thieves who then at once vanquish the unprotected citizens. They destroyed citizens if they're not qualified kings come. So Prabhupada is comparing those thieves to the democracy system where unqualified leaders are chosen who, because of not being trained, because of not being qualified, not understanding the purpose of life, not understanding how to take care of citizens to elevate their consciousness to go back to Krishna. So they don't do good things for the kings, citizens usually. They only try to extract taxes and enjoy their sense gratification, like that. That's what Prabhupada is writing. So Prabhupada is emphasizing how monarchical regime is far better than democratic system, like that, especially when the qualified and trained kings are selected. Then Samikrishi is continuing that how, because if monarchical regime is taken out, what will happen is people will fight among themselves, people will steal each other's wealth, they become thieves, there'll be different social disruptions, and uh, people will be killed and injured, and animals and women will not be protected. So that means all the sinful activity will happen, and even though we are not committing sin directly, we'll be indirectly responsible to that sin also, like that is telling, basically saying, same Samik Rishi, Prabhupada is appreciating that Samik Rishi is taking responsibility for this action, that because of us so many things can happen, like that. So now 45th verse, he's further describing, then people will in general will not follow varnashram system nicely. They'll be only attached to enjoying and getting money, enjoying sense gratification, like that. They'll be like, will get unwanted population, like on the level of dogs and monkeys. That means dogs and monkeys are primarily interested in sex life, it seems, especially doing it outside, like that. So, and they create a lot of population, right? Dogs and monkeys. That's what is describing here. That means because of our taking away, punishing the king who is responsible, qualified, then what is happening? We're becoming cause for degradation in the society, like that is describing. So now going to 46 verse, now he describes further. That is about if any king, responsible, nice king, if is punished, what happens? Now actually this is not any other ordinary king. He's a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. So that means we should not have done anything for such a great king, like that, because he's a devotee also. Because he's telling that all the qualities of Kshatriya are there. in the Parishad Maharaj. And he was also great devotee. So we should not have cursed him like that, is saying. Now going to the 47th verse, he says, the Rishi, now he understood that, oh my God, my son really did a sinful act by punishing this king. So let me pray to Supreme Lord. My dear Supreme Lord, please forgive the offense of my son. Like that, he started to pray. Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport that it's a very grave thing to offend a devotee. So we should be very, very careful not to offend devotees. And Prabhupada answers two questions in the purport by raising them and addressing them. One question he raises is, if it is all done by the will of the God, then why is Brahmana son Sringi being blamed for this offensive act, responsible for offensive act? So actually, Prabhupada is saying that even though it's done by the will of the Lord, that is why it's arranged that only small boy did this act, not some Brahmana, elevated Brahmana adult did it like that. So that way it can be easily excused like that. Number one. Number two, he says, so why the Brahmana committee as a whole was made responsible for Kali to enter the world affairs? Then this is the point, I don't know, Parampan Mataji was asking a few days ago in one of the Bhagavatam discussion in the evening. This purport, you can read Mataji, 47th verse purport, where Prabhupada is answering this question. Why is the Brahmana society being held responsible for it? Apparently in the Varaha Purana is described that the demons who were acting inimically towards Supreme Lord and whoever was not killed, somebody is killed, they will already get liberation usually. But if they're not killed by the Lord, they were allowed to take birth in Brahmanas' families, it seems, as a elevated facility for them, so they can practice. It's an opportunity given to them when we are in a Brahmana family because of the Brahmana culture, mode of goodness. So they will naturally get elevated to spiritual consciousness. So he was giving that opportunity through these demons, it seems. By merciful Lord is giving that opportunities to have birth in the pious Brahmana families. But then these foolish sons of Brahmanas did not take that opportunity nicely, and they further, based on the previous propensity, demonic propensities in previous life, which carry through with the subtle body we know. So they exhibited these demonic qualities, like in this case, Shringi. That's why Brahmana caste got degraded, like that Prabhupada is describing here. So that's a important point to note. For a lesson for us is, we should always be guard ourselves against demonic propensities that might exist in us, bad qualities that might exist in us, so that they don't become prominent. Instead, we should suppress them or work on the good qualities so that we're not affected by the bad qualities and we don't act improperly like that. That's the important lesson we can learn from this 47th verse. Now, 48th verse, he is glorifying the devotees. Samik Rishi. What is he saying? Okay, actually, Parishad Maharaj is so qualified. He can counter curse him, or he can take away that curse himself. That means he can dismiss the curse. Then we'll not be in trouble. But what to do? Devotees are so forbearing. That means they can tolerate any kind of insult against them. Even if somebody defames them, somebody cheats them, somebody curses them, somebody disturbs them, somebody neglects them, or even somebody kills them, they don't try to take a personal revenge against them. So that is not an option. So we need to pray to Krishna only to help like that. Like that he is discussing. So this is important lesson for this verse also for us. This is a purport you can read, 48th verse purport. Essentially, that pure devotees, even though they have great qualifications, great powers, they don't utilize the power to utilize for their personal benefit. They don't take that one. Second thing is, if somebody insults them, they don't mind so much. They'll think, I might have done something is wrong, so that's why he's treating me like this. That's like that. But they will do some practical action. But internally, they don't keep any grudge. They forgive them, they forget like that. That's one other principle. Another thing is, but Prabhupada also writes, but if same thing happens, if somebody blasphemes the devotees of the Lord, or King Krishna, or Supreme Lord, then they will take a serious action, strong action against them also. It's not that they're timid people who don't take action. Like that also, Prabhupada is describing purport. So 49th verse. So the Samikrishi was regretting the sin committed by his son, but he did not take the insult paid by the king to him very seriously. The lesson Prabhupada explained in the previous purport is exemplified in this verse. That Samikrishi, even though king insulted him with a dead snake, he did not take it seriously like that. So another point Prabhupada is making in the purport is that Maharaj Parikshit also did not mind the curse of this Shringi. So that's an important lesson for us, that he took it as a will of the Lord and then he utilized that for perfecting his life like that. We'll hear more about this in the next chapter coming up. Parikshit Maharaj, how did he respond to this curse like that? So the last verse for today. Oh yeah, another important point is, so because everything was ordained by the will of the Lord, neither Parikshit Maharaj got the benefit. Samikrishi got the benefit. He did not get any reaction. And his child Sringi also did not get reaction. He also got protected by the Lord by excusing him. Like that, Prabhupada describes nicely in the purport. Now, the last verse for today, 50th verse, uh, this is describing how not only the devotees, generally the transcendentalists, that means Jnanis, Yogis, and Bhaktas, all of them are situated in the higher platform, in the transcendental platform. They are beyond the modes of nature. Because of that, they don't care about ordinary happiness, ordinary distress that's coming to them. That is what Prabhupada is describing. This is an important principle also. When we are focused on the eternal, when we are focused on the transcendental platform, then on that backdrop of the transcendental platform or the higher goal that we have, then we see all the other things as small, insignificant things. Little happiness we get, little distress we get, like that. So that means we need to increase our focus on our goal, transcendental goal. How is that possible? By taking shelter of our sadhana process of daily chanting nicely, daily hearing scripture or reading scriptures, and then worshipping deities and following the four regulated principles. This will give us the sufficient strength to see the strong focus of our goal of life. And then in that backdrop, we see a small insult somebody does, we don't take it so seriously because we're focused on that goal. That is very hard to achieve and requires a lot of effort, energy, enthusiasm for us. So we don't let that enthusiasm go away because of somebody insulted something, somebody did something small to us like that. So those are a few lessons we can learn. We'll hear a wonderful next chapter also. We can continue. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpa tarubhesha kupasindu bevacha paditana pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Prabhuji,
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
ask
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, you had a question, Parampavan Mati?
is Prabhuji.
Yeah, go ahead, Mati.
So, for example, now we see in our society or today's age that there are different types of people who are talking against the our Vedic rules or our appropriate Krishna conscious rules. Like they are talking in favor of meat eating. They are talking in favor of like illicit relationship and everything. So and they're preaching all those things, you know. So how we should like what our our what our responsibilities or our reaction should be as a devotee or as a Vaishnava? What should we do in these cases?
Sure, very nice question. Next time, please raise your hand so that we know question is there before people drop. Yeah, thank you. So,
Yes,
yeah,
right.
what you do is basically that's a very important question also to understand what do we need to do. Yeah, in the circumstance currently we are in. So, primarily, we need to do two broad things. One is cultivate our own consciousness with very good sadhana and be a nice example to society. Number one. That is very, very important because purity is the force.
Mm.
Second thing is preaching is the essence. That means we do whatever we can to do following in the footsteps of Parikshit Maharaj. What did Parikshit Maharaj do? He tried to do his best to help in the religion should not progress further like that. Number one. Number two, he propagated Krishna consciousness by propagated the chanting of the holy names and propagated the Vedic literature. That's Krishna Katha. He ensured that Krishna Katha goes on. That means we can do Harinam Sankirtans as when we get opportunity, and we can share literature that Srila Prabhupada wrote with others. So that way they get opportunity. The Kali Yuga cannot progress further if everybody takes to holy names and scriptures. So we take the opportunity to distribute literature to others and then share as much as we can, depending upon the time, place, and circumstance. But our how much will be effective in sharing the literature or sharing the holy name or sharing the Krishna consciousness depends upon how much level of purity we have. That doesn't mean I'll become pure in the next 50 years, then only I'll start preaching. That doesn't mean that. It means that we should place emphasis on nice sadhana so that we can preach nicely also. So that's what it means. That means both should go hand in hand. Makes sense, Mati?
Yes, got it, Prabhuji. Yeah, currently, just I have a follow-up question. As you mentioned, that we should share Krishna, the essence of Harinam chanting and Krishna Katha. We should propagate Krishna Katha. But as of now, the situation in West Bengal, like in our like state, or especially in Kolkata region, there lots of conflict happening. So it is becoming very hard to tell people about Krishna and Krishna Katha. So at this situation, like my mother was asking, like those neighbors who were previously was listening little bit about Krishna, but right now they are so rebellious that they are like just not caring anything. So in this situation, what they should do, like
Yeah, that's an important thing. Yeah, basically, there will always be people of different levels of consciousness and different levels of receptivity, like including ourselves. So when we hear instruction, we don't apply readily right now today. Like that, some people don't want to hear the instruction. That is a different level of, that's all, level of elevation for them. So we need to understand that and then give them opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness at their level, whatever they want to do. Maybe they'll only give donation to Krishna. They don't want to do chanting. Okay, that's good. At least engage that way. Maybe they only do hearing Krishna Katha once a year. Or maybe they only come to temple once a year in Janmashtami day. Whatever they can do, we can encourage them and appreciate them like that. That is one thing we can do. Second thing is, like a Vaisheshik Prabhu says, there are always ripe souls everywhere. So we need to look for ripe souls and help those ripe souls instead of struggling so much with people who don't want anything with us. Pick the ripe souls and help them. So that then when ripe souls are helped, they will help more ripe souls like that. So that way we can propagate more. That is second point. Third point is, Srila Prabhupada wanted us to be at least a Madhyamadhikari. Madhyamadhikari means, you probably know 4 things we do. One is respect and affectionately uh, worship the Supreme Lord, and then make friendships with the devotees, with like-minded people, and then show a mercy to the innocent people who don't know anything. Not that who know, but they don't want. That is a different category. Then stay away from envious people who don't want anything to do with it. That is good for you, good for them also. Envious people, staying away. Why? Because envious people, you tell more about something, they'll actually create a negative story more about it. And they'll go away from Krishna more. So we're not helping them to come closer, but we're helping them to go away from Krishna. Krishna doesn't like that. We want everybody to go closer to Krishna. Yeah? So that's the other thing also we should remember. Then we don't pick the battle with envious people first. We pick the ripe souls instead. Make sense?
So can I repeat so that you can understand whether I got it or not?
Sure.
First, we should appreciate whatever they are doing, like giving donation or going once, visiting temple once a year, or hearing Krishna Katha very rarely. Whatever they're doing, we should appreciate that first. And second, we should pick up the ripe souls and preach them, like, or because different people have different levels. So instead of struggling with the who just don't want, we should give time to the ripe souls. And that was the third thing you mentioned, and the second thing you mentioned I forgot.
Oh, okay. Maybe I don't remember the sequence how we described it, but not only we appreciate other people wherever they are, we give them opportunities and encourage them at appropriate times with the right dosage. We cannot encourage them somebody to chant 16 rounds, for example, but we can encourage somebody to come to temple on Ekadasi day, for example, instead of once a day, once a year in Janmashtami. We can ask them to come on Ekadasi day to temple. Like that, I may give you an example.
Gotcha.
Basically, we create opportunities for people to
Mhm.
get Bhakti Sukriti, whether it's
Got-
taking prasadam, hearing holy name, taking a book, whatever they can do, or giving a donation, like that.
Gotcha. And the third thing is, and the last thing is that not to mingle with envious people, so that they will get more away from Krishna, and Krishna doesn't like it. Anyway, we should bring people toward Krishna.
Exactly.
That can be without interacting with them at all.
And also it protects us also by staying away from envious people. Otherwise, because our faith is komala, very weak right now. So our faith should not be affected by envious people also.
Got you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Welcome, Adi. Yeah, see you.
The
Hare
next
Krishna.
I will rise and Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna, everyone. See you tomorrow.